Hi guys, let's start coding a dialogue system in Unity. And what better place to start than after the fade. So here is my dialog box. And what I want to do is I want to create, well, what I want to do is, let me see if I can show you in Photoshop real quick. Let me do 1920 by 1080. Okay. All right, this is total programmer art, but basically I want to have a dialog box, okay? A dialog box is going to be modal, which means you can't click on anything behind it. So nothing behind it can be clicked. And then I want to have a dynamic number of buttons here. So I'm going to have like an OK and a cancel button. OK, and then cancel. And then I want to have like maybe we can put in an icon as well. So we can do an icon in there, and then we can have some text. So we can have our text in there, and then we can have like a header up here as well. So we can have our header up there, and then we can return whether the user pressed the OK or cancel button, or maybe there's an OK, try again, cancel button. Okay, but we'll put in the OK and cancel, and it'll be easy to put in the other two later on. But that's the kind of idea. Now, there's a couple of ways we can do this. What we can do is actually maybe we could do it that way. Maybe we could use fluent design. Maybe that would be kind of cool, because then we could add our OK and cancel buttons, and then we could pass in an action for that, and then we can have as many buttons as we want, and we don't really care, and we can set the text and all that kind of stuff. Let's do that. That's a much better idea. I like that. Okay, now that involves a little bit of design and sort of thinking about it, but basically we're going to have so we're going to have an interface. So an interface tends to be like that, and this is going to be called Dialog. And I'll use the American spelling. Dialog, and that's gonna expose a certain number of methods to it. So it's gonna have things like show, which is the last thing you're gonna do. So the last thing you do, which is gonna return yes. Actually, that's not gonna do anything. It's just gonna show it, because we're gonna pass in actions. It's gonna be add a button. Oh dear. Turn. You know what, I'll just type this. So we're going to have, let me just erase this just now. So we're going to have our dialog here, and then we're going to have a show. We're going to have an add button, set title, and set text. And also we'll have like a set image as well. Oh no. Oh dear, what did I just do? I made a big mistake. Okay, let's make that 100 or 75. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is we need to add text. So that's going to pass in a string. We're going to need a add string, set title. That's going to take in a string. We're going to need add button, which is going to take in a string and then an action to perform. And then we need add text, or maybe that's going to be set text, set title, add button, and then show. And then that's going to show the dialog box, and that's it. That needs to be add button, we also probably need to have like a cancel button, a generic cancel button. But every time we do the action, it's going to, okay, we don't need to have that because every time we click the button, it performs the action and closes the dialog box. So we don't need a cancel button, we just need to pass in a blank action. So we'll do something like that for our cancel button. In fact, let's just have add cancel button. So there you go. There's our that's what we're going to build today, is this iDialog with these actions, and then we'll create a generic dialog box that you can use anywhere. And it doesn't really matter what it is. You can change the art. You can do whatever you need to do with it. You can have like full screen. You can have it as a little dialog box. You can do any of these things, and we'll start that right now because we're actually after the fade. Anyway, okay, let's get on with this. So I'm going to put this over to the side here, so we remember what we need to do. And I'm going to create a new folder here, and I'm going to call this folder, actually it's going to be inside scripts as well. So I'm going to create a folder in here called dialog box. And inside the dialog box folder, actually, I'm going to have that outside here because I want this to be completely separate from here, because then that way you can just take this and drag and drop this in your own projects. So I'm going to create a folder in here called scripts, and I'm going to create another folder called prefabs, and I'm going to create another folder called, I'll just leave it at that. Okay, and then we're going to create a script here, and it's going to be called iDialog. And we also need to have we need to have the actual dialog itself. So that dialog is going to be, let's call that dialog box. Okay, so our iDialog, we're just going to jump right in, as some guy called Philip might say. I watch a lot of YouTube. So I'm going to just load this here. Now you notice I'm using the dynamic action buttons. I'm going to create it as it's going to be a separate scene, so it's not going to be interacting, it's not going to be changing with that. Okay, so first thing we notice is that it's a mono behavior. We don't want it to be a mono behavior. And then the next thing is we want to call this an interface. Now an interface is kind of like a class in that you define members of that, but all the members are public, and you declare no code in here. So no code gets put in here whatsoever. There's no code whatsoever. Everything's public. You don't need to write public. In fact, if you write public, it complains. So what we want to do is we want to take this note that we made earlier on, just 2 seconds ago, and we want to put this inside here. And every single one of these is going to return an iDialog, okay? Because this is going to be a fluent design, all right? And we'll get to that in just a sec. So I want to say things like iDialog, set text, string text, iDialog, set title, string text, iDialog, add button, string text, and then it's going to be action, action, and then I'm going to do iDialog, add cancel button. What am I doing that for? String text. Actually, we don't really need the add cancel button, because what we can do is we can say that is equal to that. Oh, except we can't do that because it's an interface. Okay, iDialog, add cancel button, string text. We don't need that, and then we do iDialog show. Right, so that is our interface. And our interface, what does an interface do? It sets up a contract between the programmer who creates the system, us, and anyone who uses the system, your peers. So anything we do in here, we want to set to be use this iDialog, right? And the thing that we're going to use this iDialog is our dialog box. So I'm going to double click the dialog box, and it's going to pop up in Visual Studio in here. And it's not only going to implement all the code inside MonoBehavior, I also want it to implement everything inside iDialog. And you notice that there's a little squiggly there. Now, the little squiggly is there because it needs to have all the interface implemented. So I'm going to do implement interface. And you'll see that we have our add button, add cancel button, set text, set title, show, and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to have public, I'm going to create these public fields. So public text, and then it's going to be header text, public text, body text, and then I'm going to have, I don't have any buttons there, but I do want to have, I don't want to create, I want to be able to, no, I don't want, okay, I don't want to create a prefab for the buttons, but I do want to have a list of the buttons. So I want to have a private list, and then it's going to be button, buttons. So I do want a list of the buttons there, and I'm going to add my Unity UI there. And so now this is the bit where computer programming gets a bit boring and a bit repetitious. What we want to do is we want to add these buttons to our list. So we're going to need a public game object button prefab, and that is it. Okay. Oh, and we also need a public panel, which is game object. In fact, we could probably use transform, and then this is going to be the button holder. Now we don't want. We do want that because we want to be able to see it. Generally, we don't want it to be visible, but we'll maybe come back and hide this later, which in my speak means we won't come back and hide it ever. But those are the four external properties. I think that's the only one we need. Okay, so I want to create an add button, an add cancel button, and a set text. So I want to actually create a private button factory. So I'm going to say private button create button, and then it's going to be string text, and then action, and then it's going to pass that back to actually, do I need to pass it back? I don't think I do need to pass that back. I think I just need to create it, but I do need to add it to the list, so I probably don't even need that. I just need to do void create button, and in fact, do I even need to do that? Maybe I don't even need this. Right, let's leave that out just now. Maybe I don't even need this. So what I want to do though is I do want, maybe I do want to do this. Okay, what I want to do is I also want to have a clear. Do I want to have that? Okay, maybe I do want to have that. Because in my show, I want to do that. I want to show everything there. I don't want to immediately show it when you set these things. So, all right. So what I want to have is I want to have a private class and a private, private class. So I want to say, I'm going to hide this in a region. So private class to hold the data structures for the dialog box. And then that is going to have private class dialog data, and then we're going to have public string header, public string body text, and then we're going to have public list, and then this is going to be button data. What is button data? Button data is private data public string text public action set. And why is that only get? Because that's going to be a private set as well. Oh, we need to call that buttons. Okay, so I want to create a store for this because I don't want to immediately set these values. I want to set it on the show because I want to clear everything and then show the dialog. All right. Right, so my dialog data is going to be public dialog data buttons equals new. What's the buttons? Okay, so that's my dialog data classes. So I'm going to have a private dialog data equals new dialog data. So when we first create this class, we're going to have our dialog data set up for us. So what we're going to do is when we set the text, for example, we're going to say dialog data dot body text equals text, and then we do return this. And this is one of the most uses of the word this. Don't do things like this dot dialog data dot body. There's no need to do this dot. Okay, you don't need to do that. It's too much. Just use this when you're returning. There's a few places you use it, but accessing a field member is not one of them. I'll get into that into another video, but this is just return this. So I want to return this dialog box because I'm going to use Fluent Design, which I'm going to get to. So the set title is going to be dialog text dot header equals text, return this. And then show, that's going to be kind of complicated. We're going to get to that in just a sec. And then the next one is going to be the add button. So for this, we're going to call create button, button text action, and then return this. And then the add cancel button, we're going to do create button text, and then we're going to pass in our blank action and then return this. Okay, so this is all part of our Fluent design. All right, so when we add a button, we create the button and then we return immediately this. Okay, so this is our dialog box, and then our show we haven't implemented yet, and then we've got our private void create button. So our create button is going to be game object button copy equals instantiate button prefab button copy dot transform dot set parent is going to be this here, which is the button holder, and we'll come back to that in just a second. That's going to be part of the UI elements. And then we want to do var text equals button copy dot transform. Actually, it's just a dot get component in children text var button equals button copy dot get component in children get component itself. I have text there already, so I'm just going to call that txt. That's good enough because I already have a text up here. Now what I want to say is I want to say txt.text equals text, and then the action is going to be button dot on click add listener action, which I think I have to write in a wrapper in Unity call Unity action. I have to do that, and that's that. And then I want to add, that's the create button, but I don't want to create the button. I want to add the button to the dialog data. So what I actually want to do is I don't want to call create button here because that's going to create my button. What I want to do is I want to do dialog data dot buttons dot add, and then it's going to be new button button data, and then it's going to be text equals text, action equals action. Okay, so this is a shortcut way of, rather than creating a new object, you just specify new, whatever the name of the object is, then you use the curly braces, and then you pass this, and this is called an object initializer, and it saves you, typing. And what we want to do down here is we want to do exactly the same thing, but instead of action being that, because we don't have an action, we're just going to do that as this. Okay. And why is that not letting us do that? I have to write this in brackets. Oh, right, okay, yeah, that's why. Because I have an extra. That's my object initializer. Okay. And that's it. So the only thing left is the show. Now for show, what we're going to do is we're going to remove all the items that are currently being displayed and then show the object. So we need a reference to this somehow, so that's going to be a bit tricky as well. Okay. Actually, no, it won't be a bit tricky, because what we'll do is we'll put this on the, okay, we're going to have to put this on the canvas. Right, it's fine. We can get this. All right, so I need to have game object, and this is going to be the dialog itself. So this is going to be our actual dialog. Actually, we'll call it dialog box. So our show is going to say, where's our objects here? So we get header text, body text. So header text dot text equals dialog data dot header. Header text, body text dot text equals dialog data dot body text. And then we want to remove all the buttons. So this is us setting the text, set the buttons. So the first thing we need to do is we need to clear the buttons. And we actually have a very similar code to this in here. Our remove options, where are we? Yeah, this one here. So I'm going to grab this line here and just paste it into here. So what we want to do is we want to remove everything from our button holder content. We want to destroy everything in there, and then, so this is going to be, oh dear, this is going to be remove the existing buttons from the dialog box. Add the new buttons to the dialog box. Okay, and then what we can do is we can use a little bit of Fluent design here. We can say dialog data dot buttons dot for each, and then inside that we can then say what does this give us? This gives us we specify an action for each of them. So what we want to do is we want to create button, and then we pass in, what do we pass in? We pass in text and action. But what we could do is we could pass in button data. So instead of text and action, we can pass in button data, because this is internally used anyway. So this is going to be our button data. And then we just have that. Okay, now this is a little bit of kind of the sort of dark arts of C# programming. But what this is doing here is we're saying, instead of doing a for each, we're actually, instead of doing for each var b in dialog data dot buttons create button b. Okay, so this line here is doing exactly the same as this, except we're doing it in one line. That's all. That's the only difference. So we're saying for each of these items, so these items being our button data, we want to pass that into an action, and that action takes in a button data. So if we change our function to take in button data, we can then just get rid of all of this, and we end up having one line, which is great. So now down here we just have to change a couple of things. We need to do button data dot text, and then this one here will be button data dot action. So that's that whole one line now, just there. Hopefully you guys can see that. I'll just make sure I've got that. Yeah, I'm way down the bottom here. Okay, so that's adding the new buttons to the dialog, and then we want to show the dialog and then clear everything in there. So we want to do dialog box dot set active true. We'll do return this down here because we need to return this for our design. Show the dialog box. Set up the dialog system for a new dialog. Okay. So this means that we need to clear everything. So in order to clear everything, we're just going to do dialog data equals new dialog data. And if this becomes a problem, we can optimize it, and maybe there's going to be a memory leak or something. I doubt it. It's all it's all managed data, so it shouldn't be too much of a problem. And then keep the Fluent design by returning this. And so that is everything I think we need for our dialog box. Now the only thing else we need is, actually, you know what, I think we can leave it as that. We'll just leave it as that, and we could do a static, actually let's do a static method. So I want to have a dialog box static method. So I want to do public static dialog box, and then I'm going to call this instance. I'm going to do get. Now I want to have a private dialog box static, and then this is going to be called instance as well. So I'm going to have my instance here, and I'm going to say if instance equals null, I'm going to say instance equals GameObject.find object of type dialog box, return, and then underneath there I'm going to do return instance. Why is that not finding that? Main object of type. Oh, that's why. Region, this is kind of a Singleton pattern. It's not really, because a Singleton would create it for us, but we're not creating it, I guess, because it's either going to be null or you're going to find an object here. But it means that we can do dialogbox.instance dot and then do what we need to do, and then we can keep that fluent design, which is what I want to have. In fact, what we could do is we could, because dialog box is iDialog, we could actually make this iDialog, and then that would mean that the caller doesn't need to know how we're going to necessarily implement this. All right, I think that's the code. I think we're good for code. Go for code. 100 lines. It's roughly 100 lines, not including the comments and things. And we have our Singleton here, and we have our dialog box up here. Okay, I think that's good. All right, let's go back to our dialog. Okay, so this is our dialog box. I'm going to use, there's actually a separate video where I show how to create this. The buttons I want to create, I'm going to create these as separate ones. So I'm going to create this button here. And this is what our buttons are going to kind of look like. I'm going to make the text a little bit bigger, obviously. I'm also going to make the text black. And the text is going to be about that size. And that's going to be our button text there. So good size. Okay, but I want the background of the button to be the same as this dialog here, because I want it to, you know what game I want it to look like. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag my dialog box onto my UI sprite, and you'll see that we have the button there, and because it's shaped, it does the right thing. Okay, so the text is not particularly ideal. In fact, what we could probably do is we could go to font, and we could go to Amstrad, I think it is, or Amstrad, or Arcade. It's Arcade, I think it's Arcade. Yeah, here we go. Arcade Classic. Okay, so free for personal use. Well, you guys should download this. Oh, there you go, 100% free. Perfect. This is Arcade Alternative by Abdul Muiz Haji Kasim, bin Haji Kasim. So once again, I apologize for bludgeoning people's names to death. It's just that's the way it is, I'm afraid. I'm not very good at talking. So I'm going to drag that into the art UI. It doesn't really matter where it is. And I have my Arcade Alternative, and I'm going to drag this into here. And now you can see that we've got button here. I'm going to make that a little bit bigger. What is that? 16. I'm going to make that 64. Apply. I don't like the fact that it does rendering mode smooth, OS default. There you go, it's a little bit better. And so if we go back to our canvas and our button, so you can see that when we change this, the text is going to be like an OK or whatever. It's going to look kind of cool. All right, now we don't want this text to appear when we open up the dialog box, I'm going to drag that over to that point there. Now the dialog box is great because it's centered, but I also want to have another UI element, and this is also going to be a text. Well, we can make it a panel. No, let's make it a panel. So the panel, I want that to be rendered first. So I'm going to drag that before that other image, and you can make this any color you want. I am going to make this black, and I'm going to make it a little bit more transparent than this, so it's going to be that kind of color. Okay, so when I look in the game, that's the sort of difference it's going to be. Maybe a little bit darker than that. That does seem a bit light. Maybe it was right the way first place it was. So yeah, so there you go. That's the kind of dialogue. That's the kind of effect I want. So when the game pauses, this shows here. So this is my dialog box. And then inside the dialog box itself, I have my. I want to have my text, which is going to be. Let me put this back in scene. And my text is going to be rendered top left, so it's going to be clamped top left, but I want to center it in the middle just to be the safe side. This is going to be my header text. So my header text is going to look like this, and of course I'm going to use my arcade alternative. I'll put a link that you can fast forward past me talking about this. And I'm going to make that there, and then I'm going to make this kind of this size here, and again I'm going to make this black, and this is going to be dialog header text, and I'm going to call this dialog header text. All right, and that's going to be my dialog header text. And then I'm also going to have another, actually I'm going to copy this guy here, and I'm going to call this body text. Let's keep it consistent, body text. And that's not going to be, actually that should be 64, I would have thought, just to keep things a little bit nicer. And then this one here can be half that size, so we make that 32, and we can drag that down to here, and that's good enough, and we can center that both ways so that it's going to look like this, maybe something like that. So it's kind of, let's put it bang in the middle. Let's see why it's not letting me do that. Okay, yeah, that looks bang in the middle-ish. And then I want to add another UI element here, and then this time this is going to be a panel. Now the panel itself is going to be where the buttons get put. Now the buttons, if I drag these up to about here, and here, and here, we should go easy on the buttons, but this is the sort of idea. I'm going to make this completely transparent, and then this is going to be the button holder. So this is where we load our buttons here, and we're going to add in a layout, and that layout is going to be a horizontal layout group. And it's got child controls the size of width. I think we want to keep that on because I want all the buttons to be roughly that size. And it controls the height as well, and I want to have about 8 of a spacing on it. And that means that every button is going to be 8 pixels apart from the other button. And then I want to make sure that's middle right. Now what that means is every time I add something onto this dialog box, it is going to appear on this side here. So it's going to be like the first item you add is going to be the OK button, the second one's a cancel, and so on. I think that's everything. So when I run this, we have our dialog header text, dialog, and that's going to be that's going to be body text. Body text, okay. So for example, if I bring this button here and I drag it into button holder, you'll see that button holder appears on there. So if you only have one button, then it appears on that side there. But obviously we don't want our button to be on the canvas just now. We want it to be over here. So that's a good size for our buttons there. And if you want to make sure everything's all kind of clamped up and over on this side here, you can maybe do something like that, or whatever stylistically you want to do for your UI components. Okay, now the canvas itself, I'm going to add the dialog box onto there, and then I'm going to start dragging and dropping our items on here. So I have my dialog header text, so I've got my header text, and then I've got the body text, and then the button holder, and then the dialog box itself, which is this one here, and the button prefab, which is this one here. Now what I should have actually done was I should actually have I want to create an empty game object here. Now my empty game object is box parent. So I'm going to call this the dialog box parent, and the dialog box parent sits at 0, 0, 0, and then I'm going to drag and drop everything into here. So everything hangs off of dialog box parent. So if I turn off dialog box parent, everything goes away, okay? Including the panel, which is not active yet. So there's the panel that's active. So if I click on this, then dialog box parent disappears, okay? So that is my theory. So my canvas, instead of the dialog box, that's actually going to be dialog box parent, because I want everything to be not showing. So my panel, I want that to be a raycast target because I want to stop everything from being clicked behind it. Okay, I think that's good. Yeah, I think that's good. Okay, so now what we need to do is just drag and, so we'll call this our dialog box prefab. So we'll call that dialog box prefab instead of canvas, and we will drag that into our prefabs folder. And so that's all we need to do for that there. Now we're going to go to our other scene, our scroll view demo, and we're going to drag and drop that dialog box prefab into the scene. Now you'll see that it's got button over here in the corner, and when we run it, it does pretty much exactly the same as we did before. The difference is that when we click on clear list, it should bring up that dialog box, and that's what we're going to do. So our clear list here, which has, where's our clear list? Our clear list goes to add object to list. Okay, well, it doesn't add object to list, does it? That's not right. Clear list. Okay, let's remove that component. That's a bit of a bug. That shouldn't do that. It goes to list box remove selected. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to create our, this is our add object, our add object button. It goes to this one here, add object to list. Okay, so we want to create a public void confirm clear. So we want to create this public confirm clear. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do our dialog box dot instance dot set title, and we're going to say delete item. So that's going to be our title. Now the great thing about the Fluent design is instead of doing that and then having to do all these separate lines, we can do everything in one block. So rather than having your semicolon at the end of the line, we're not terminating the line. We're actually just moving. We can then chain these. So now when I do dot, you can see we've got add button, add cancel item, all that kind of stuff. That's our Fluent design. But generally what people do is they put that on the next line. So they can do set text, are you sure to remove this item, and then again we do add button, and then add button is going to be yes, and then that action is going to be actually our action is going to be list box dot clear options, and then we're going to add button. Actually, do we need an add cancel button? Add cancel button, no. And then finally, we do show. And that's it. So you can see that we use our Fluent design and everything is brought in the same one. It's basically a one-liner, but it's spread over 4 or 5 lines here. So we set our title, we set our text, we add our button, and then we specify the action we want to take if the user clicks that button. And then we click and then if the user doesn't want to do it, we use the cancel button, and then we show the dialog box. So now, fingers crossed, I'm going to go and go to clear list. And instead of remove selected, I am going to choose, where are we? Where's the other one? Where's the other one? It is on, add object button. Yeah. Okay, well, this is a bit of a add object button. So I need to reference this add object button, which is a bit of a meh, but we should have actually put this in a separate class, but oh well, not for arguments. And then I'm going to choose our add object to list, and then we're going to do our confirm clear method that we just created there. So confirm clear. So our clear list button is actually accessing a script on the add object button, which is not great, but we're stuck with it just now. So now when I click on play and I add an object, I choose my list box, and then when I click clear list, I get add item, and it says, are you sure you want to remove it? Yes or no. I'm going to click on no, and it doesn't clear the dialog box because I didn't get it to clear the dialog box. That's why. And also it's showing it behind everything, so I want this to be in front of everything. So I'm going to sort the order. I'm going to choose 1,000 for this canvas. I'm going to click on apply because I want it to be at the front of there. And then what else do I need to do? Oh yeah, I need to, when I add an object, when I add this here, so this is inside the dialog box, I add a listener here, and that listener is going to do our action. But what I actually wanted to do is I want to not show the dialog afterwards. So in order to do that, our dialog box here needs to get cleared. So what we can do is we can do action fire and close equals, and then it's going to be button data dot action. So whatever that action is, and we also want it to close that dialog box. We want to do dialog box dot set active false. So we want to close that action. So now our listener is going to be a new Unity action, and instead of button action, we're going to do fire and close as our action, if that makes sense. So fire and close is going to be our new Unity action. If I bring this in just a little bit, okay? Because what we want to do is our action, we still want to perform whatever the action is that the user specified. In the case of the dialog box, it's going to, in the case of cancel, it's going to be nothing. And then for our set, we also want to clear the dialog box whenever you click something. Now this one here, where's our game display? 16:9 scale, okay, canvas, 1920 by 1080, and then this one is 1920 by 1080 as well. Match with our height. Okay. Okay. And so click on there, click on that, click on clear list, and you'll see that it comes up to the front there. So if I click on no, it closes the dialog box. So if we'll fix that scaling in just a sec. So if I click on list box and then click on clear list, and it says, are you sure you want to remove the item? And I click on yes, it clears the entire list because I called clear entire list. Oops. What I should have done though was clear that selected item. To clear the list. So clearing the list, just to make it obvious what's actually happening here, is I add the item, click on Unity, clear that, click on there, and it clears the list, okay? So I could actually just not bother clicking that. You sure you want to clear the list? Click on no, click on that, click on yes, and it does the job that it's supposed to do. Now, what I should do here is I want to remove that item. So I'm going to change that to remove that item. And instead of add button, I'm going to choose list box dot remove at list box dot selected item at where's our list box? Clear item. Oh, remove selected, that's why. Ha! Okay, so I should have a remove, actually I should just have list box dot remove selected. So if you want to remove a single item, we're going to call remove selected. So now Let me change that clear list button. Let's call it del cell, delete selected. So I'm going to click on our add object, click on list box, click on del cell. Are you sure you want to remove the item? Click on yes, and it deletes that item. So that's exactly what I wanted it to do. Now to fix that pesky scaling problem. So let's go back to our dialog box. And so for the create button here, we're going to do set parent. I'm going to do button copy dot transform dot local scale equals vector 3.1. So we're going to do all ones on the local scale, and that should solve our problem when we add an item to our dialog box. So we'll do this, click on there, click on that, click on that. And there you go. Are you sure you want to remove that item? Yes or no? And we're going to click on yes. And then our item's deleted. Are you sure you want to remove that item? No. And so on. Okay. Yeah, I think that's us for our dialog box. But you can see that we can add, you could have, let's do this very quickly. We could do, did I close Photoshop? Oh, no, I didn't. Let's do a very simple, let's do this here. Let's do a very, very super simple warning triangle. Shouldn't have done that on there, but never mind. Like that. I did a better warning triangle before, but never mind. It doesn't matter. It's fine. It's okay. And we'll make that this color here. That's good. And then we'll make it a little bit more yellow for over here. Something like that. Okay, and then B, D, okay, so we'll call this warning, and then we'll export warning, save that, and we'll call that warning, and we'll save that to there. So now we have a warning box there, and this is going to be sprite 2D, and yeah, that's good enough. So if we now go back to our dialog, we can actually open up that scene because we have our scroll view import test, sorry. And we'll make this visible again, like that. We have our body text here, and then maybe what we want to do is, instead of having the body text being there, we want to just have it being slightly off center, and we'll have a UI image. And we'll make it that size, that's good enough, and we'll make that hook to there, and then the source image is nothing. But what we can do is, in our iDialog, we can also do things like iDialog, add image, sprite, image, or just call it sprite. Okay, and then we add our Unity engine there because we need to have that there. And then when we go back to dialog box, you'll see that dialog box now has a squiggle against it because we need to add our sprite. So we do public iDialog add image, add sprite. So now we need to add that to our class here. So we can then do dialog data. So we got public sprite get set, and then sprite equals sprite return this. That would be dialog box dot, no, not dialog box, dialog data. So that would be our image there, and then just as a sort of quick and dirty one, we could do if we have a sprite, show it, otherwise clear the image. Dialog box dot get no, we need a reference to that, don't we? We need a reference. Public image icon. We'll call it icon. Call that icon, and then we'll do icon dot sprite equals dialog data dot sprite. And in our prefab, so we have our dialog prefab here. We now need to drag that over to there. So we can now drag across image onto here, and we will rename image icon. That seems awful big, so we'll make that size there. And our image, we will, yeah, that's fine. Okay, so again, I'm gonna turn that off, click on apply. Okay, and now go back to our scroll view demo. And you see that it works exactly the same as it was before, except it's the text is a little bit screwed up. We need to resize that. But it works exactly the same way. So now what we can do is I need to change my add to list script here. So I'm going to do a public image warning icon. Sorry, it'll be public sprite warning icon. And then I've got set title, set text. Now I can do dot set set add image. I should have called that set image. Oh well. In fact, let's change that. Let's go to here and change that to set image. And then we also need to do that inside our dialog box. We'll see a red line somewhere up here. Yeah, there we go. Set image and set image to the warning icon. Okay, and now we go back to our button object here, and we'll see that we now have a sprite icon. So I'm going to drag that across to here, and we've got our warning. And now when we run this, we'll add objects, click on list box, or any one of these, it doesn't matter. Click on del selected, and you see that we now have our warning icon. So this is a fairly, flexible, dynamic dialog system, and we can add buttons as well. We don't need to add buttons as well. We could have we could have a add button remove all list box dot clear options. So we could have this in here now as well. So that's me adding one line of text, and now I have completely different functionality from that UI component. So I can have add object, and maybe I click a couple of objects, doesn't matter. Click on del selected, and it says, are you sure you want to remove that item? Yes, remove all, or no. So if I click on remove all, it removes everything. And if I click on that and then actually I'll click on up here so you can see it. So if I click on del selected, it says, are you sure you want to remove that item? I click no, it doesn't do anything. And if I click on yes, it clears everything. So yeah, dialog system in Unity. Hi guys, thank you so much for watching. If you want to subscribe to, if you liked what you see and you want to subscribe to this video, then hit the subscribe button down there, and don't forget the bell icon and send a note into Google and get a note from your mum and all that kind of stuff, so you can get notifications. And if you didn't like it, thumbs down. If you did like it, then give me a big thumbs up if you're already a subscriber. And if you're not a subscriber, also give me a big thumbs up. And if you really liked the video, feel free to share. There's some great subreddits out there, Unity 2D, that people frequent. Maybe they want to see this video as well. Who knows? So yeah, thank you again, and I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.